And well, back to the show. Well, in recent news, the mayor, Bill de Blasio, has announced plans to expand 3 to K in every school district this September. Still, the city is falling far short of providing preschool special education classes to all children who require smaller classes with trained special education teachers. Now, while COVID-19 has led to a temporary decline in preschool special education referrals this year, the city has also a current shortfall of hundreds of seats in the classes serving preschoolers with the most significant needs. And here now to share more is the Early Childhood Education Project Director at Advocates for Children, Betty Baez Melo. And thank you so much for being with us, Betty.
Thank you for having me, Daren.
And so, Betty, I think that, your job is to point out there is a glaring problem in our school system. And when we look at the issue of preschool education classes, not really coming up to snuff.
No, unfortunately, these preschool special education classes, as you mentioned, the classes particularly for 6 and 8 students, are classes that serve students with really significant developmental delays and disabilities, right? So for example, a young child diagnosed with autism who's nonverbal, who needs really intensive supports and services early on in life so that he or she can make developmental progress and reach milestones in a timely manner. These are children who need a special education teacher who's trained to work with students with disabilities and need to be in a really small, supportive, and often therapeutic environment. And unfortunately, right now, even with decreases in the number of children referred to preschool special education services, we're still seeing a current need for hundreds of seats in these classes, meaning that these children could potentially be sitting at home for months, if not more, receiving no special education services while their peers are in 3K and pre-K programs. So we are really calling for the city to address this significant need.
And so how do we address the need? How do we get this across the finish line in a way that can address the needs of these children?
We're calling for the city to open more preschool special education classes. These young children with disabilities have a legal right to these special education classrooms. So while the city is receiving, there's this significant influx of federal funding, and so while the city is pursuing expanding preschool special education, or while the city is expanding early childhood education, it cannot leave students with disabilities behind. So we really are calling for the city to open more of these preschool special education classrooms. We've been able to do that before, but also to support the existing programs, to support the community-based organizations already operating these programs and extend similar supports that they offer 3K and pre-K classes to these programs, including salary parity, to increase the pay for these special education teachers so that they can stay at their current jobs and support these students.
The importance of the work. I want you to share a little bit about why this work is so important and why you feel it's necessary that the mayor and the school's chancellor go the extra mile.
Yeah, I think the city recognizes and values early childhood education, and we see that in the expansion of 3K and in pre-K for all. Those same benefits are even more pronounced for preschool students with disabilities. Since the pandemic, we've seen, unfortunately, a sharp decline in this interventions that students with disabilities are receiving, both children from birth to 3, where there was a significant decrease in children referred to the early intervention program and receiving developmental services at an early age. But we also saw a decline in preschool special education services, so that children weren't receiving therapies like speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and weren't working individually or in any capacity with a special education teacher. Not being able to get these services in a timely manner will lead to the children requiring more intensive needs later on in life. And the pandemic's already disrupted that enough that we really are calling, there's this immediate need for the city to address the problem now so that these children are receiving the special education services that they need at an early age.
And how do communities of color actually play out in terms of being affected?
Significantly. So unfortunately, we've seen great disparities, particularly last year, pre-pandemic, the city was reporting that there was a need for anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 preschool special education class seats. And the most significant needs were in communities in the Bronx. So, we really want the city to take this on as an equity issue, to really realize that not providing these seats greatly impacts low-income communities. Similarly, when the city is not providing these services, it can sometimes be up to individual families to seek services or seek remedies, including potentially suing the Department of Education to secure therapies or a private special education program. Those remedies aren't available to low-income families. Usually they involve at least consulting with an attorney, and low-income communities of color don't have the resources to be able to do that. So it would be also an equity issue to only have programs or services available to families who can sue for them.
Yeah. When you look at what's going on right now, COVID-19 more in particular, all of us have been dramatically affected. Talk about how the clients that you're representing are literally affected through COVID-19, and how's it actually played out for you?
Some of it I've mentioned already. It's that there's been a decrease in referrals, a decrease in evaluations, and a decrease in families and children receiving special education services. Even the families who have access to these services, who are already, had an education program in place, the use of teletherapy or remote services over the last year has had a significant impact. Very few programs have been able to offer all day in-person special education services to young children. And some therapies are very hard to deliver through an iPad or through a computer. So for example, when we talk about physical therapy or occupational therapy, where usually it's an individual one-on-one service where therapist is, putting a crayon in that child's hand and helping them hold a crayon, be able to color, to write, or is physically guiding them to teach them how to go up and down stairs. Those therapies don't translate well to remote services. And it's put a significant also burden on families who need to be available and be able to support their child and don't have the training necessarily to be able to translate what the therapist is saying into the actual help and service that they can provide for a child. So the pandemic's had really significant impacts already. And so as the city is, recovering and making plans to go forward, we are really hoping that students with disabilities aren't left behind and that this is taken into account.
Yeah. What is it that most people may not understand about students with disabilities to the average person who may say, listen, you know what, I just didn't know that and we need to advocate?
Sorry, that actually stumped me a little bit. What people should know, and something that I've mentioned already, is that students with significant developmental delays and disabilities who they have an education service plan in place. And that education service plan gives them a legal right to all of the services outlined in that plan. And so when we're talking about the shortage of preschool special class seats, we're really talking about children who have a legal right to attend the special education program. And it's a program that's been recommended as a result of evaluations in consultation with the parents, with a group of experts that have recommended this placement. And it's an environment with a special education teacher. It's an environment with a small number of students that can really meet that child's needs. And it's really intensive services early on to help that child make academic and developmental progress. Now, many students with disabilities can and do participate in 3K and pre-K programs. And we fully support the expansion of early childhood education. But when we're talking about these specific students, it's students with such a significant need that they wouldn't be able to attend, the program in their neighborhood necessarily, like the 3K class in their neighborhood.
Well, Betty, thank you for the valuable information. I think that you've been a very credible voice to be able to lend to an underserved population, and glad to have you be able to share with us here on Open.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and giving time for us to address this issue and for helping us rally people behind the cause.
Well, it's important that we raise our voice and we do it together. Thanks a lot, Betty.
Thank you.
Alrighty, now, if you want more information, please do us a favor. Visit the website at advocatesforchildren.org and follow them on Instagram and Twitter at AFC New York. We don't want you to go anywhere. Stay with us. Open will come right back right after this.